Hello and welcome everybody to another Soul Talk here on my channel. I'm so happy and very excited because we're going to talk about one topic that actually helped me explain and understand myself a little bit better. But before I go into it, I'd like to introduce to you my guest today, who is Dr. Jeana Locke. I hope I got it right.
Jeana Locke.
Jeana Locke, a human design and energy healer master coach who has a PhD and certifications in teaching, counseling, and Eastern science, who found the pieces missing in Western science and education by connecting key Eastern medicine assessments. And I love that so much because that's also a second thing. Because of my Asian background, I've started to go into the whole, traditional Chinese medicine and everything, and combine that. And one of my all-time favorite things, and I know it works with my body best, and I think maybe because of my Asian background, but it's Qigong. It's like the best thing for me to, ground myself, feel the energy in my body, and just get energized whenever I need energy. And right now, as a family, we found a practice of 7 minutes each day. I know it's not much, but at least something. So we're standing all, because I live in a family, how do you say, house where we have 3 generations, and all two of the 3 generations, every morning we do our 7-minute Qigong in the morning, and it's amazing. But yeah, so welcome.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to have you here, and I'm so excited that we're going to talk about a lot of things. But maybe just to get started, how are you? And maybe in your own, I know we just read your bio, but maybe in your own words, what is it exactly that you do at the moment?
So I will tell a little bit how I started. So I started life as a traditional person. I did if you work hard and you just do it, you'll get ahead, and you can do that. And I did all the work hards. Came from a really poor Native American. My grandfather was German. I got the German looks, but I came and I was raised in a Native American family. So we didn't have any exposure to Western science vocabulary, so to speak of. So when I went to high school and stuff, I had that kind of exposure, but family-wise, no one had ever, graduating from high school was about as much, if that even happened in our family. My sisters and I were really driven, and we all graduated high school. We all went to college, and we graduated. It was really hard because we didn't really always understand the traditions of college versus the way we were raised as a traditional. I probably struggled with it more than my 2 sisters did, because I was just is how I was. But I worked hard. I did all this stuff, and I did all the stuff you're supposed to do in Western world: work hard, show up, do the pushing, do all this stuff. And I would do all this stuff, and it would work a while, and then it would just blow up, like an explosion would happen. And I would start over, and I would eat healthy, and I would exercise, and I would get enough sleep, and I would do all those things, and it would blow up again. And it was just like every single time all these things kept happening, I didn't really understand why it was happening. So I ended up, by the time I finished with all these explosions that happened and going and starting again, I ended up with a PhD in applied behavioral studies and education. I did everything except a portion of the licensed professional counselor. I actually just decided I just didn't want to do that way. I wanted to head from a different direction on it. But I teach licensed professional counselors assessments and how to do assessments and career planning. And I teach capstone classes for them because it's all about the assessments that they pull together to use, and then teaching all the theories that go with it. So I've taught a lot for graduate programs and doctoral programs and these kinds of things. I've taught in those graduate program areas, and I loved it. And I worked in higher education. I put programs together for big groups, economically disadvantaged groups of challenged areas, females that wanted to go in non-traditional. I put together huge programs all across the places that I worked, and I loved it. And then every so often there'd come a new boss, and there'd be this big explosion, and I wouldn't know what had happened. I'd win Employee of the Year or Most Outstanding Employee, and then all of a sudden a new boss would come, and all of a sudden everything I'd done for the last 3 to 5 years were like, it was terrible. You're not a good person. And it was a really interesting experience. So as things get along, I ended up with one of those bosses again. And after having this great boss, and I finally decided, I'd been dating somebody for a lot of years. He lived in one state, I lived in another, and he wanted to get married and have me move, and I did. And I just thought, oh, I can get another job and it'll work. And I went And no, I applied and nothing happened. It was like nobody even saw me. And it was a really interesting thing. And I went through a really deep time of those deep nights of the soul, so to speak, as I and I really went through this experience of what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. And it was really tough for me at that point. And I stopped and I said, I have all this Western, I'm eating right, I'm exercising, I've had all my physicals, I know my hormones are all balanced and appropriate. I know that and I was exercising heavy. I mean, like I was a big cyclist. I cycled a lot, did a lot of road bikes and stuff. My nutrition was really, really good. Sleep, I did everything I could, and nothing was working. And I'm like, okay, something is really working. I had a near-death experience happen. And it wasn't my first, but it was significant enough that somebody saw it and then explained to me they saw it, and then why aren't you dead? And it changes it when somebody sees it happen and then comes back and wants to know why you're not dead. So it changed everything. I started looking at it and said, okay, Source doesn't want me to go. Source wants me to stay. There must be something more I'm supposed to do. What is it? And so I connected with some different things. I'd always been big readers of the Celestine Prophecy and Wayne Dyer books and the Four Agreements. You know, I lived by the Four Agreements. Always do your best, all of that. And I still do. I'm going to just be honest. They're sitting right here in front of me, all of those books. But it was one of those situations where I knew there was more, and I sort of experienced it. I ended up going to an Ocean Code, Body Code certified practitioner. And it was my last chance. I was like, this better fix it. This had better fix all this. I have this PhD. I know all of this stuff on licensed professional counselor. I know that. I know how to do that. I know how to do all these things. And I went to her and we started doing some work with emotion code releases. And the first session was like 1,000,000 pounds lifted off of me, which was super helpful. And I booked sessions immediately. I took my money out of my savings. I booked the sessions. We met twice a week, which is all that she would do. I would have met every day if she would have let me. And it was literally to get this off. And she talked about human design in a little bit. And I'd explored it a little and did some stuff with it. And at the end of that summer, so I started early summer, at the end of that summer, after 25 sessions in emotion code, I was doing a whole lot better. And I understood a little bit about my human design. I'm a manifesting generator. You know, that's who you are. You are a sacral authority, which means you have yes or no stuff. And I understood a little bit about me, but that was about it. Just enough to realize that, you know, all of those things that had happened in my life, a lot of them had been something to do with the fact that I was just a manifesting generator was part of it. And so I went on and I got my certification in emotion code. Loved it, totally loved it, still love it, use it every day. Worked on all my stuff on other modalities. So I'm certified in quite a few other modalities as well now. And I did that, but I decided I wanted to go to a retreat. So at that fall, I said, no, I really want to go to this retreat. And it was a retreat with Grace Point Publishing, and it was a book author club. And I didn't really want to write a book at that point, but I wanted to go to this location the retreat was at. And I knew this location. I'd been there before on some stuff, and it was like I found me when I had gone there. So I did this. And when I got there, it was a 5-day retreat, very, very small, only 12 women. Karen Curry Parker was there, who is a top human design sort of feature person in the world, very, very big one. And Michelle was there. And it was one of those deals. And Karen did a human design reading while we were there. And it changed my life. She set me down. She said to Michelle, cancel the rest of the meetings for today. This one's going to take a while. And I'm like, oh, what's she talking about? You know, I'm nothing special. And it was a whole talk about my whole life, every drop of my whole life. She explained it. She explained how it felt, where it had come from, when it happened, all of that by looking at this chart, which was an assessment of my wiring that God created when I was born. Like when it is your birth time and your location where you're born. It is the city, the state, the time, and the date. And you put that together and it gives some timing about where all the planets were and what influences those planets had on you. And then it has 88 days before on the other side, but it is literally your energetic wiring of who you are. And I had always been very skeptical about something like that, you know. I taught assessments. I taught graduate assessments to students. That was my specialty. I'm going to teach all the career assessments. I'm going to teach all of the psychological. That was me. And I'm like, and I heard this assessment, and it was like my eyes opened. I heard about my manifesting generator. I heard about my sacral, and how I would just say yes without even knowing I said yes, or I'd say no. And it was where it came from. And inside of me, somebody could tell me it was not that way, but I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew. And it was such a strong feeling. She talked about my channel called the 2034 or 3420, whichever it is, and that it's red, which is unconscious, and how much of a strong aura it has with my gate 31 being a leadership. And then I walk in, if you have a person who wants to be a narcissist or is a bully, that I walk in the room and I can read their lack of integrity in 2 seconds, and they can feel that I can read it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to say anything. I can try to hide behind it. I can try to pretend it'll be okay. I can try just to go on, but they will literally feel that I know they're out of integrity, and then I am just tolerating them, literally. And it is almost as if they go and do that. Now, that's just a combination of my gates where they were and my stuff of where it was. It's not going to be exactly the same for everybody, but that was what happened. That was a great experience for me. I went home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be busy, busy, busy. It's okay for me to multiple task, which is for manifesting generators. It is okay for me to recognize that I do enjoy doing multiple. I can do the laundry and cook the meal and sweep the floor and turn around and get the dishes washed that I've already used and have it all done. And it's no big deal to me. And that my husband, who's a generator, couldn't do that didn't really bother me, but it bothered him that I could. And I had to stop and say, but I'm just a manifesting generator. So I learned a lot, did a lot. And as I went on, I learned a lot about myself, and I understood how much power understanding your energetic wiring can do to help you learn to love yourself, accept yourself how you are, and recognize that if someone doesn't see your energetic wiring as a positive benefit, that's okay. It is okay that they may not be part of our purpose that we have on life, or we may be there to give them a catalyst to move forward to something different. But to quit judging myself as I was bad, that was the biggie. I wasn't bad. I'm sure you felt it, Miss Projector, who's splenic. You weren't bad. There was nothing wrong with you. You were perfectly okay, exactly the way you were designed. And once you accepted that, all at once things started falling into place. I learned a lot about, because I did a lot of energy work, and I did a lot of helping people get grounded and clear their energies. And I learned a whole lot about how each different type, there are 5 types, each type they have their own tools to be able to get grounded. They have their own tools to be able to work through things. And that concept that we all know that one size fits all does not work. Human design explains well why it doesn't work. It explains well, as a projector, you need time away from this little manifesting generator. Yes. It explains well that if you'll stop and walk in nature, or if you can stop and put your feet up for 20 minutes and just put on some chill music or a Netflix, something that makes you not think, that you can let go of all of the stuff that's in there. And then you can move on and proceed with your own energy, because you just picked up all of everybody else's before. Now you let go. So there are 5 types. There are manifestors. There are 8 to 9% of our population. A close friend of mine's a manifestor. Once she accepted being a manifestor, that once she knows that she knows, they are the true initiators of our world. If they're out of alignment, they are angry. Angry. I know. Then there are generators. Generators are our workhorses. They're 37% of the population. It used to be a little bit different. It used to be about 35, but the more we do research and the more charts that are run, it's about 37% now. And they are the workhorses. When they master what they have come here to master, they become extremely proficient in it and able to just help people move forward in learning that. They are tremendous at whatever they've mastered. They have mastered it, and they can grow. Then there's manifesting generators, which is me, which is a combination of a manifestor and a generator, and we are different than generators. We have a red sacral, so we're busy. We work just like generators. But we're different in generators because we see things and we see how to do it differently and more effectively, perhaps more efficiently. And we don't realize that other people don't do that. And we need to respect that other people don't do that. That just because I saw that, that's my mastery field, is to do that. And I'm here to master that, which I came to do Western science and Eastern science and master better ways to do there. Recognizing that they are multiple taskers. That's what they are. When you want them to don't go to bed till they're tired, you can't put a manifesting generator to bed at 8 o'clock and expect them to go to sleep, because they won't sleep well and they'll wake up exhausted. Get them tired, get them exhausted. Projector child, you want to let them go to bed, have 30 minutes to an hour to chill out, and then they'll go to sleep and they'll sleep really well. They'll wake up in the morning refreshed and ready to go. But they needed that hour to decompress all of their other energy. So after manifesting generators, 32% of the population. Projectors, Miss Projector, yes, you are. Yes, you. And you are 20% of the population, maybe 21 now. You're the directors of the world. You're the one who comes in and says, all of a sudden you meet somebody and you have this knowingness of what is best for them to do. And learning for a projector to wait until they ask you what they want, what could help them. If you give it before then, they push you away. They don't want to hear it. They're not ready for it. And it's really tough for projectors because they have no understand. It's hard for them to understand until they realize they're a projector. That manifesting generator doesn't have that skill set. That's not her forte. Her forte is being busy, seeing another way to do this. Your forte is to explain and help that manifesting generator understand something about themselves that they don't know, or even an energetic way, or even a physical way to do something. For projectors, it's really hard to do it for themselves. It's very tough for them to say that same thing for themselves. So people say, well, you know for me, why didn't you know for you? And it's just not you. And the reason, I'll explain that in a moment. But projectors are 20% of our population. They're very great at directing and overseeing. They also need a lot more rest. They need to take time away from the other energy fields that are there, especially manifesting generators and generators, because they pick up all of our sacral energy and they can handle it, and it's good for them for a little while. And then they need to let it out because it's just too much for them. So it's really hard for projectors. They've often been called lazy, and they are not. They've also been called that where they don't have any, what makes them feel successful, what makes them feel good is when they are successful and they've been recognized for being good at what they are. If somebody criticizes what they're doing, that is really hard on a projector to be able to feel. So it's a good way to recognize things about energy. The last one is called reflectors. 2% of the population, all of those centers, there's 9 centers in a chart, all of them are white. They pick up the energy of others. They reflect it back to the world that's around them, and they do that. So let's talk about those 9 centers for a minute. Is that okay, me, if I
Yes,
share a
please.
little
No,
bit about them?
I was going to ask you, like, can you explain human design a little bit? And you're already doing it perfectly.
So there's 9 centers, and they're shapes that are triangles and squares and diamonds, and they're inside the chart. All of the shapes are in the same places on every chart. All the numbers on those shapes are in the same places on every chart. What changes for each chart is where the planet was on each of the planets at the time of your birth and 88 days before that. And it will put colors on the charts. Black is for the ones on the right. Red usually is on the left, if that's what the chart person has used. Most people do. And it gives a person an understanding of here's how they're wired and energetically wired. Gives them a whole lot of information. So the combination of where those gates, those numbers that are over there, is a gate number. That's in the I Ching. And it may be why you felt it's not necessarily Asian, but a lot of people, if they feel attracted to human design chart, if there's something about it that they're supposed to know. If they don't feel attracted to it, that's okay.
That's one of the things that I wanted to say, which probably is the reason why I love human design, because it's sort of a mix. I hope I'm explaining it right, but it's sort of a mix of astrology because it takes the time and date where you were born, what the planets were, and everything. but also it
I
doesn't,
think.
not like astrology, it's also the 83 days before, which I find amazing because it takes in this whole, I mean, if we look at the energy side, the last 3 months that we were in the womb are were also very, I mean, we're already probably more present as
Right.
our souls, so we pick up on so much, so that's also important to look into that energy as well. And then the I Ching coming from maybe Chinese or but somewhere Asian,
Yes.
with so
The
much
Kabbalah.
wisdom. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that too. So it's and this is one thing that I love about our new time nowadays, because there's so many things where we find the connection in between. You know, before it was like you couldn't imagine matching astrology with the I Ching or with, you know, well, that was weird. Like if you could look at 15 years back or 20 years back, well, I know human design is older, but sort of in I mean in the mainstream spiritual area, you couldn't think of, like, if you were a shaman, you did the shaman part. If you were, you know, Reiki, you did Reiki,
The
but you would
Reiki
never have thought of mixing
blending.
everything,
Mm-mm.
right? And nowadays, and especially maybe that's why I love human design too, because it is already sort of a mix of all these informations, and it's getting, it's you know, it's evolving with us as well, right? Because I mean, now with the gene keys, and you know, there's so many
Oh,
other things that are,
gene keys are wonderful.
yeah, that
Yes.
are being added. So it's a growing tool that we can use. And this is what, just to put it in there, that's so amazing to really count that in. And I think that's why it's so perfect in describing us, our like you said, the imprint that we bring into this world as humans.
And it is why we each are so uniquely wired, why we each see the world in different, with a different lens set, with a different energy flow. So when you have that, if you have two gates or two gene keys that touch each other, it makes a channel. And when you make a channel, then each of those centers on each side have a color to them. So what happens when you have all those white centers where there's nothing touching to another place? All of those centers are where we receive all of the energy from everyone else and it comes into us. So my crown is open. And I literally have always thought that everybody could just hear the energy or like know the energy of everyone around them. I thought everybody could do that. I didn't realize that it is, there's not a whole lot of people with a defined crown, but those with the defined crown can't do that at all. They actually have a defined way of how energy comes into them. But those with that white, they take in that energy of everyone around them and then they magnify it 70%. So oftentimes when I would go into Walmart or a big box store of any sort, I would come out and I would just feel frenzied, because I felt frenzied because I felt all of that energy in my crown and all of that energy in my, I have an open root center. I have an open solar plexus. I have an open spleen. I have an open will center. And all of a sudden, everybody's willpower was like magnified. Like I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this. And all of those things got magnified. When I learned about human design and I understood, all of a sudden I'd say, is that even my thoughts? No. Do I need to know those thoughts? Yes. Is it going to help me with the client? Yes. Now, do I need to hold on to them? No. All I needed was to know what to do with that client. And that's what is really wonderful. I teach that in my human design when I do human design readings for people, as I literally teach them how to understand their open centers and how to use that, because your greatest wisdom comes from your open centers, because it's going to give you all of the information around the world. Those defined centers are, I have a defined way that I see this, like my ajna, third eye, is defined. And I have a defined way that I look at the world, and what I see is going to be acceptable, but I don't see the visions of everyone else. So I don't really get caught up into having to design it this way or that way, or I can't design it because I have too many options. I can get there. But when it comes up, you mentioned earlier, you had an open, what's called a G center, which is the yellow triangle or white triangle in the center. Some people call it the heart. And that one is our identity center. And for you, since it's open,
Hold on, I was
you,
gonna try to, for those of you watching on the channel, on the YouTube channel, I'm just gonna share my chart that
okay, that
I
sounds
have,
great.
because
I
I thought
haven't seen
maybe
it, so that'll be awesome.
as an explanation we can use this one. Do you see it?
Yes, I do. So
Perfect.
in here, you have her heart, your heart is defined on this part. But where this little triangle over here that is on the very far right side, It's called the solar plexus,
This
and
one?
it's open. Yes, it's called the solar plexus. It's open. You pick up every emotion of every client that you've got.
Yes.
And now you have learned in your own way to stop and say, is that my emotion? And then it's like, oh, no, it's not my emotion. Oh, it's my client's. Do I need to know this? And I would just stop and say, I need to know this. Yeah. Okay. Do I need to hold on to it? No. Now that I know it, okay, Jeana's feeling really struggling with blah, blah, blah. Now that I know it, I know how to help her because now I understand. And you magnified all of my energy 70% bigger than it was before you got to that point. So you felt it expand inside of you. The root center is totally open. There's not even a gate to it. And that means that you really pick up everybody's energy, all of their fear energy, their can't get grounded, don't know what to do. And when you pick it up, all of a sudden you know where their challenges are on staying connected, sort of. And I'm going to say it a little differently. I say keeping your soul part of yourself connected with your physical body, because we have our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, and our spiritual body. Then we have this physical body we have. And keeping that soul connected with that grounding, that root center, so that we sort of stay as one and we don't go off into getting too unstructured. So you pick up everybody's, they're not grounded. You know they're not grounded. It's probably why you do the work you do. You can feel it bigger than anybody. You've amplified it. Now you stop and say, oh, I know how to help them now. I understand. I understand why Jeana's was different and John Doe's was different and Jane's was different and Lana's was different and Micah's was different. Now I understand why they were all different, where they were coming from. Their experiences in the past have guided that. Now I know how to help them get that back, to say, oh, it's okay, to stay connected with their soul. Now, each of these, your will center is also open, which is that tiny triangle next to the yellow diamond. That's your will center. And the will center is only 8% of the population have it defined. And those people have very strong willpower. I mean, you talk about a person who's got a Tony Robbins. Like when you get in their energy, all of a sudden you want to do what they say to do because their willpower just went into your little white one and amplified 70%. And you have to ask yourself before you leave any program. And I will say to you, if somebody joins my program or your program, they're not going to get that because we don't have that defined will center. So they don't get that pressure of I have to do this. Yeah. And we don't even like the pressure of I have to do this. We don't even want a client to feel like I have to do this. We want a client to feel like, oh, I'm pulled to work with me. I'm pulled to work with Jeana. Oh, that's the place I'm supposed to be to help. That little red triangle there gives you a whole lot of understanding. And there's times in our lives when we have it as it's defined, but it stays defined just for a short time. So when we connect with someone who makes one of those other gates connect, then ours gets defined and we think it's ours, but it's not. So you hear somebody who changes their mind. I have someone in my family who, I think I want to be this. And oh no, 2 weeks later, I want to be this. And then 3 weeks later is I'm thinking really seriously about it. I really want to be this. She's an open will center. She has a parent who has a defined will center. One of her close girlfriends has a defined will center. And all of a sudden she goes between, here's what my mother wants me to do. And here's what my girlfriend wants me to do. And then here's what I want to do. And then here's what the world thinks I should do. And it's just like, and it's just a whole thing about it. So for you, because that open will center's there, you also feel them struggling with what do I do? How do I do it? And why is it I can't make up my mind? I want to make up my mind, but I can't. And I'm really upset. What's wrong with me that I can't make up my mind? And you help them find the safety in saying, is that actually your will or is that society? And there's nothing wrong. The mom doesn't mean bad. The friend doesn't mean bad. Society may not mean bad. But with fairness is if we all start being our authentic being of who we are, we each need to be contributing to the goodness of society and to the magic of society, and we become a piece of that magic that makes a bigger magic piece. You know, the Harry Potter movies are great, but let's remove one or two characters and it's not the same movie. Yeah. We need them all. We have to have all of them to make the magic that really happens. So we would look at your chart. You have your sacral is open. So you pick up all of my willpower today. You're going to get through. You're going to be amplified for a while. And then in about 2 hours, you're going to go, I am tired. Oh my gosh, why am I so tired? And then you got to go let go of it and recognize I need to let go of Jeana's. It gave me a little spurt of energy that gave me something to do, but that's all I needed from it. I don't need anything else. So understanding your human design is a true positive. And you have a profile number of a 2-4, and I think it's tremendous. And I think it would be really helpful for people to understand a little bit about profile numbers. So the manifesting generator, the manifester, the projector, all of those tell us something about ourselves. We may say, one, for you, you need invitations to show up in your life. You need people to invite you to do stuff. You need to have someone call and say, hey, there's a party over here. Would you like to come? For you to call and say, I want to go to your party, it wouldn't work. But if somebody invites you to do something and you feel, use your authority, which was a whole different topic. We could do a whole different deal on authorities one day if you want. But using your authority to make the decision is helpful. And then understanding why we all see the world differently. And I see our profile as how we see it and how others see us. So people who have a 1 in their profile number investigate, dig, research, investigate, dig, and research, and they keep on investigating and digging and researching. They are the diggers. They are the ones who are here in this world to be sure the information is accurate, to be sure they have dug enough. And when people get onto them for digging too deep, that's part of they're wired to be the diggers of the deep, to make sure it's accurate. 2s, my friend. 2s are here to integrate information. They take in this information and then they integrate it. And when they're ready and it's integrated in all their cells and all their being, they're able to share it back out with ease. But until it's integrated, it's not going to come out very easy. So a teacher in front of a classroom and you have this class, and I've been guilty of this. I taught school for years. I taught graduate school. I would go through a lesson. At the end, I'd say, so let's just talk about what we did, thinking I am reaffirming to these students what they needed to learn so it would go into them and sink in better. All of the 2s in the classroom went dead quiet and didn't say a word. They hadn't integrated it yet. Nope. They couldn't speak. They didn't know if that was accurate. They didn't understand how it did. And especially for me as teaching graduate school so long, and college courses so long, I wanted people to be able to reflect it back in their own words. So I didn't want a quote from the textbook. I wanted them to say how they felt about it. And it was really interesting. Once I understand now, when I teach classes and I do things, I stop and ask, tomorrow we're going to go over this. Here's the questions I'm going to ask. And that gives that 2 time to integrate. And it gives the opportunity for them to know expectations for what's going to be important to me, possibly on an assessment thing called a test. And it also helps the rest of the class learn that information. But the 2s get time to integrate. So 2s are great integrators. They don't give it out until they're ready.
I love that so much that you're talking about this, because when I look at my own, path as a solopreneur, from when I started to find my niche, you know how so many businesses or business schools or online, the whole coaching business that is out there for your own business. There are so many that go like, hey, even if you have the imposter syndrome, just go on and, just do it. But for people like me, I can't operate on imposter syndrome. If I haven't gotten it for myself, if I'm not really 100% sure that what I'm talking about, that's what I'm, that I understand what I want to talk about, I just can't. So I'm very happy, if you look at my path, how it went and how I came to be here where I am, I'm so grateful, because all of the teachings that I went through, all of the coachings and classes and, everything that I've done, I know that right now what I'm giving my clients is 100% integrated within myself.
That's exactly what a 2, and 2s are important. Yeah. A 2 can't, it's hard for a 2 to be out of integrity with themselves, because if they are, they can't hardly even talk. They can't speak it out. It's like, I'm doing this because this coach I've got right now told me I had to do this. And it's like, it won't try to say it. And it's like, you can't even say, would you like would you like to work with me? Doesn't even come out of your mouth yet, because it's like it wasn't true to who you were, because it isn't integrated. So it's helpful to know you're a two, and understand that when you're a two, that it may take you a different amount of time to integrate to be able to come out. Threes, that's me. I'm a three. So did you hear how many pieces of paper I had? Did you hear how many degrees I have? Did you hear how many certifications? I don't even have them all on my chart. I am certified in lots of human design. I'm certified in quantum alignment systems, which is EFT tapping and quantum design. I mean, human design. So it's this whole tapping system of doing energy healing and human design at the same time to help them understand how to live through their little challenges. And that's a three. They experiment, they explore, they have to try it all. They don't keep, they use out of each piece what they need to put their pieces together for their own puzzle. They take all of them. I probably have 1,000 books sitting here behind me, and I've read them all. I have a synopsis of every book in an Excel spreadsheet with alphabetical order, where I can chart it by topic or author or relevancy, and I have a 5-star rating down to a 0 rating on every single book.
Wow.
That's a three. I have got to understand how everything fits together. I teach Akashic Records. I know human design. I understand 7 to 10 different modalities, certified in a whole bunch of modalities in energy healing. I am certified in teaching all of these as a Western science. I have all of the PhD and all the assessment stuff from the Western side. Then you turn around and you look at all of the stuff I do that has helped integrate it. How do you help a person use the grounding that works for them? Is it going to be what? How is it going to work? Mm-hmm. What I'm going to say to you is, with fairness, as we go through that, that's a three. They experiment, they explore, they don't hold on to it, they go try something new. And sometimes on some of those job changes I talked about with that new boss, it was time for me to move on. I went to something where I totally integrated. By the time I finished my education career, I was putting together early college high schools where a person went through high school and received an associate degree at the same time when they finished, and had everything they needed for the first 2 years of college for the bachelor's degree completed at that time. So high school, an associate's degree, and it was an credit loss, not a credit, if they followed the path. And they could go on and have their bachelor's degree. And I usually had full ride scholarships for every student to go through. And I put together huge programs for technical programs, from service things like heating and air and automotive and all those, to be able to get bachelor's degrees, to academic type things like psychology and English and history and all of that. It didn't matter. That's what I did. But I went through teaching in public schools and career tech, to community colleges, to universities. I understood how all the pieces fit, because I was a three. And I get it. I understood it. Fours. Okay, you guys, me is a four. Me is a community builder networker. Networkers who build networks of the topic that's important to them. People are attracted to come to you because you build them a safe place to explore this topic. That's a four, and it's natural to you. It's like simple to you to see how to put this together. You actually can see, oh, this is how you put this together. And you would say to this three, you would say, can't you see how you build your community? Don't you sort of see? And I would be like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to do that. And you would be like, but you just do, because it's simple for you to stop and see how to build the community and what support systems that community needs to meet your niche area. That is where you've come to master. So it's just to say, and it's important to you. It's a big deal to you to have a safe community around yourself. Yeah. So therefore you recognize other people need that safe community around themselves. And if they have something unsafe in a community, it's like, oh, big time. And so safety is a big thing. It's a big thing for a four, to feel safe with people and in their auras that go through. That's a four.
I love that, because I think that's the main energy that's also driving me right now, for example, with these soul talks, to create a space for on one hand call in all the empaths that feel, like we said earlier, to feel that, hey, I think May should be, could be someone I could work with, or at least be in her field. And then with the soul talks that I have now with people like you, where I can give them more, more possibilities and create even more space where they can find, and because it's all topics that are important to me, to myself.
I'm gonna make sure.
Are you still there? I hear you, but I only see you.
Can you hear me yet?
Yes.
There we are. We froze for a moment.
Yeah. That's okay. I'll just edit it out.
That's okay. So I was going to say, it's very true on your 4, is that you understand that this is, there are many people who need what I have to offer, but they also need a little bit more as well, that there are more pieces to the puzzle, and you want to bring in those other pieces while they still can connect with you. And it makes it it's a perfect fit. Like my work and your work are perfect fits together. Doing collaborations for the two of us is like a perfect fit. So 5s are natural leaders. They have this understanding of what needs to be taught and what needs to be shown and how people need to do it. When you meet a 5, what you have happen is they're like a cosmic mirror to who the person is. So let's say that this person here is a 5 and I meet this 5 and I'm ready to embrace whatever this 5 teaches or whatever this 5 does. I want to do that. Like this is a entrepreneur. She only does females who want to have a balance in their life and their personal and their business and make good money. But it's important to them. When I come in because I want that, I see in myself what she has to offer. And then if I'm too scared to go do it, I'm repelled by her and I won't stay. So on that 5, what's really wonderful for as a person who meets a 5, as a 5 person, to recognize not everybody's going to love you. And when they don't love you, if they came into your program, they might not give good reviews later. I'm going to talk about a 6. A 6 is a 3, the first third of their life. They are the second third of till they're about usually around in their mid-30s. Then they turn where they go to being on the roof, which means they observe everybody and sort of see how that worked and how it didn't work. So the first third of life, they experiment, explore. They have to try it all. And they have to try for themselves. Then as a second third, they actually really go in and look at what am I and who am I, and sort of observe it. How do I want to put this together? In the last third of their life, they stop and look at themselves and go, wow, I have to teach this to the world. I have to become the role model or the wise sage. I have to be where this is. I'm a 6. So I will tell you that when in your life, you're not in alignment with your profile numbers, you sort of get kicks in the butts from Source. Source sort of just gives you this nice kick and says, guess what? We have some stuff we need you to do that you're not doing. And so we're going to make sure you move to where you're supposed to move. And oftentimes it's going to happen on any of us, that when we have a mission and part of our purpose and we're not in alignment, it will help us stop and see. So I was supposed to move into Eastern medicine and I wasn't doing it. I wasn't combining that Western and Eastern. And then when I finally stopped and did that, life became so much better. I really loved me the way I was designed. I liked me. I found value in me. So understanding your profiles gives you an understanding of how you show up to the world, how you show up and why you show up that way. And when someone's critical of you, so if somebody is critical, so for me, I feel so bad about every time I asked in a class at the end of a class period when I was teaching, and I would ask the students to give me back some information. I feel terrible because those 2s had a tough time with that. And I recognize now that we make it, but then the 2 would probably feel bad that they couldn't do what those other profile numbers could do because but they weren't ready to speak it yet. So saying that to you is that I learned to love me the way I was, and I learned to appreciate me. And I quit judging myself as being bad, and I quit judging others as being bad. I stopped and recognized how wonderfully unique each of us are, and we need each of those. We need 2s to integrate. We need 1s to dig. We need 3s to experiment and explore and try it all and then figure out how they all connect. We need fours who build us safe places to connect with each other so we feel like we can talk about these topics. We need fives who can show us to be their coach or to be the master of it, to be able to master a field and to go in it. We need sixes, those wise sages, those role models to look up to and to be and move on. So from my perspective on it, human design gives us a view of ourselves where we can stop and say, this is how I'm wired. And we recognize that our moms, our dads, our friends are not wired the same. And when they are critical of us, we have to stop and say, that's how they're wired their way, I'm wired my way, and I like my wiring. And I can't actually go in and rewire this wiring. So how can I use it effectively? And once I started using my wiring effectively, which is what you've done, is that we find how we all of a sudden fit. We know where we fit in this big scheme and how we're all connected. Did that help a little bit?
Oh, I love that because it's like I told you before we started the interview. It was so incredible to read it, basically to read it in black and white, what I am, who I am, how I'm allowed to be. And I mean, so parts of it I already knew through my own transformation. I had already integrated certain things, but there were still a couple of things that it helped me understand. And I remember back then, and maybe you can confirm that as well. And I think you confirmed it today. Because my friend back then who showed me, who brought me basically to human design the first time, she explained to me that while I'm doing this reading for you, if there's anything that feels that you feel resistant towards it, then you go like, oh no, that's not me. That's where you still need to, transform, and that's where you still need to heal, to accept that part of yourself more. And that was very interesting to watch myself, like while she was doing the chart reading, to see, oh, this part, okay, so I don't like that part, that's not me. And of course, as a 2, I need my integration time, so it took me 1 or 2, in spite of her saying that, it took me 2 or 3 days to process everything. And I'm like, oh, she's right, I need to I need to accept that part within me. And that was fun thing for myself to see. But I love how human design gives us this support in really coming, like you said, to accept ourselves the way we are. It helps us understand ourselves, and especially with empaths, because I'm not sure, I'm still looking into which are the gates that have to be open, or which are the centers that need to be open or closed, that are basically the definition of us as empaths. But I feel that a lot of empaths, because of our open energy systems, we're so, when you were describing the small triangle, how open it is with everyone else's will, that we tend to go from one opinion to another every 2 or 3 days. And that's one of the typical signs for empaths as well. And having a tool like this human design that helps us go like, okay, why don't you take this as a guideline to walk through and to try use this to understand yourself better. And it has helped in so many ways. And that's why I love this. And thank you so much for giving us this detailed information. Like, I've learned so much more about human design today, and I hope all our listeners too. I know we could probably talk another 2 hours, so I hope maybe we just have to do another episode to keep talking some more. But for all our clients, for all our listeners, like how does your program look like when they say, okay, I want to work with you? What are the main programs that you offer?
So first, I always have a human design chart that's free, and we can list that in the show notes. My
Yes.
name is Jeana, Jeana Locke, LOCKE.com, and at the very top of the page, there's a free human design chart. I make the human design chart. I pull it up and run it, and I give you a slight overview about your human design chart, a little bit about your type and your way you the way you make decisions, your decision making process, and give you a little bit. Then I share a couple of different ways to do readings with me. I also have a subscription program where I actually go in and each person gets their chart and an understanding of who they are. And then each week we do energy healings around the different energies. Because the energy is always flowing to us, there are certain every year, all through the whole 1 year of the sun going, Earth going around the sun, each of the 64 gates have 4 to 5 days, maybe 6 days of energy impacting that particular gate. So, for example, gate 48 is the gate of depth. It's the gate of I have to know more, I need to know more. And it's sometimes I call it the gate of being a perfectionist, because it's like I never know enough, so I have to keep on digging. So when that sun is going through that gate during that week, I go in and help do energy clearings to help them remove those blocks. So I have a subscription program called the Sacred Soul. And then we talk about as each of the types in that to help a person actually use their energy type, manifesting generator, projector, whatever it is, their profile numbers, and look at how they could actually dealing with that energy that they feel. And when sometimes you think, I was doing great today, and then 4 days later, all of a sudden you're saying, I'm not doing well at all. It could have been the change of that energy from this that's coming with us in that transit. And oftentimes my clients find that to be the biggest case, is that it's that energy that's pushing us a little bit at that point. So I have a subscription program, and it is super simple to do. And you don't have to attend live, you can. And we send out all of the sessions each week, and they get extra stuff as well. And they get reduced prices for all of their sessions as well. And then I do lots of energy healing work if people want it. So I use Akashic Records and energy healing and human design, and do a reading to help them sort of get focused on something they want. If they want to work on career, if they want to work on procrastination, if they want to work on weight. And I'm certified with the tapping, quantum human design and tapping. So we do a lot about what you just talked about, saying, oh my God, I'm a 3, because 3s always think we failed our entire lives. That's just a 3. I failed because I tried all these things and it didn't work, but it did work. It got you what you needed to know. So we help people stop and grasp and embrace the positives around each type, and let go of those society standards that say that's not right. So we do a whole lot with that as well. So they can work with me. They can start by checking out their human design. And of course, if the others are there on the site as well. So it has been a real pleasure to be able to talk about this. And you're right, we could talk about it for a long time. And it's super simple. So for me, it's I can read it, because it's like understanding other assessments. I had to understand them, because all assessments that are, especially those in the Western science world that are standardly used, those have a way of understanding how to read them and to be able to do it. And human design is that same thing. There's just layers to it, and it helps you get a more depth of who you are. Human design, when you stop and learn to stop and look at yourself and realize that you're wired that way no matter what, instead of judging yourself, because oftentimes our families judged us growing up as being something or not being something. And we did not find within ourselves that lovability. Human design can help you start loving yourself the way you're designed, and it helps you with your children. I'm going to say the biggest thing it can do for you is with your children and your parents. It can do it with your friends. You don't have to tell them that you've run that design. You may not know their exact birth date, but if you can understand a little bit about their human design, you will love them in a different way. You can respect them and see them in a different light, and see why they see you in a certain light. So it's a wonderful thing to understand about. It helped my marriage significantly, just to understand my husband's human design, and to recognize that we have very different human designs, and that we each contribute in our own unique way. He's not wrong and I'm not wrong. We just have a unique way of being in a partnership. So that's the fun way to do it.
I love that you mentioned this now, because I've heard of so many moms, doing human design charts on their children and going like, oh my God, this is so helpful, because it helps me, raise those kids way better. Because you're allowing them to have their own space in their own unique way. And also, like you said, with the partnership, I actually had my friend back then that introduced me to human design, actually did a human design chart, business
Yes.
collaboration chart for a friend of mine and me for one project, because we did one project together. And before we went in, she actually made a reading for both of us so that we could, understand each other better going into the work. So that was amazing too.
That just happened. I was on a podcast the other day and I got off the podcast and the lady came on and she said, okay, I've got to get permission, but I need a reading for each of my staff members. And then I want a group reading. So we understand how each of us contribute and how we can learn to love each other for what we contribute, and even how to ask each other questions or how to do stuff. Because as a projector, we should give an open-ended question to projectors. And projectors can answer that. You asked me as a manifesting generator an open-ended question, and I almost stuttered through it because I'm going to either have yes or no. And you asked me, how was your day? And it's like, can you say, was your day good? I can answer yes. But you asked me the other, and it doesn't come out of me because of my design. And so we're actually doing the whole group. So it'll be 6 readings, I guess, total. And then doing a collaboration with all of them to stop and learn to respect each other of where they come from and why it's important. All those different profile numbers are part of the business. So I do quite a few of the business readings. And I will say with honesty that even just doing a human design based upon your business if it's an entrepreneurship, it's so helpful to you to know how the world receives you and how they perceive you. And that when you're showing up to the world, what can happen to make it work more effectively. So it's a wonderful thing. There's so much you can do with it. It's just fabulous. Anybody has any questions, they can always email and send their question over, and I'll do my best to answer. So, if you want to do a frequently asked questions one, we'll come on and we'll do a frequently asked questions one at some point where they can just ask a few questions.
Yes.
Actually,
yeah, that could be amazing. Like to do actually a soul talk with people who want to ask questions. See here, now you're manifesting an idea within this podcast. I love that.
Well, it's an invitation for you to be able to stop and see it from a different way. And for me, as a manifesting generator, I saw something to respond to that showed up. And manifesting generators respond to what shows up in their environment. And the first thing you said was, what if people have questions and what they respond to? And it would be a positive for them to be able to share those questions with you to be able to do that. So, and there are some frequently asked questions that are super helpful for people. True. And every chart truly is unique. So when you hear that you're a projector, or that you have projector energy or manifesting generator energy or generator, manifestor, or reflector energy, that's just a big overview. That's like a blueprint, the very top of a blueprint on a plan. And it's got like 10 sheets underneath it of the plumbing plan, the electrical plan, and then it has the heating and air conditioning plan. And then it has the what do you call it? The boards that go up, the framing plan. Then it has the front plan for each of the cabinets in the house in there. Exactly. And then it has the plan so when you think about it, that's what that upper one is just that overview about you. But the other is what really builds you to become who you are. Yeah. And when you understand those underneath layers, which is what we do in quantum alignment systems with the EFT tapping, don't always do all tapping in it, but it helps you understand where your fears are and where they came from, how they showed up, and even which planet it's in. So I have one of my planets is my Neptune, which is a lot about your spirituality. When I really got in and looked at my gate on my Neptune, oh my gosh, I saw myself so differently, and I totally grasped why my spirituality has been such a core of who I am for so long. And I didn't really get that. And I was deep into human design before it really hit me to go look at some of the things that I'd struggled with, because I struggled with accepting the spirituality component of who I was. And when I saw it, it was part of my design was to really understand that struggle for other people and have to explore it as a 3 and then bring it to the world later. And I almost could cry telling you that's how much it meant to me. But I'm certified. And I was in the middle like of human design certification 2 or something, and it clicked of what that meant to what I do. So it can go as deep as you want, or as just overview as one wants.
Yeah. So. Oh, I love that so much. Thank you so much. So for everyone listening in, we're putting all the links below so you can find Jeana and find everything. And if you're interested in having a human design, I can really recommend doing that. It helped me understand so much more in my life. It's one tool. And I actually, at one point I had it as part of my coaching, because I have a one-on-one 3 months coaching. And I actually, with that friend back then, for my German clients, we had this, all my clients would receive a human design chart reading first, and then I would start coaching them with the information that they got from the human design chart, which was really amazing.
And I actually do that with some coaches now.
See, so maybe we should talk too. we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk.
Okay, we will. Yeah. I do that with some coaches now. I just provide I do a reading for their clients.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you too. Let's come on online just maybe try one more time with the camera on, because I'd love to ask you one last question. Do you have anything, like one last message you'd like to share with our audience?
I'm a really big believer in every single morning stopping and doing either a blessing bubble or an energy reboot, and just stopping and scheduling mentally for your day that I intend for this to be a day of blessing. And then starting out your day with, this is my day of blessing, and bless all of those in my world, bless all the clients who are going to come, bless all of those who are still waiting to come or haven't found me, bless me in understanding what I need to do, and just giving a blessing and asking Creator to bless my whole world and putting a bubble around me for the day. I'm a firm believer in, I do energy reboots to do that with, or a blessing bubble. And it's a huge component of what I do in human design, is to stop and recognize that we can reframe our old story to a new story, but we have to start with being able to recognize the really wonderful things that we do have to be grateful for, instead of holding on to the fear things that we do. Because we can either choose to be a victim and stay in a low expression, or we can choose to say, like I did finally, and I was 60 years old when I embraced it. So I've been doing this 6 years now, but I was 60 before I actually did this. And I spent all those years thinking I was a victim of all those bosses. I was a victim of all of those trials and errors. And I wasn't. They were what made me be unique and awesome. And I needed to be able to be certified in teaching. I needed to understand assessments from Western science. And I needed to understand how neurotransmitters work so I can help people rewire them. I needed all of that to help on the Eastern side. And looking at that and reframing that story, instead of being the victim, I became, this was what I was destined. This was where and I wouldn't know the word destined, but this is where I was supposed to be, and my contribution. And my blessing ball each day helped me get closer every time I did it. So I'm a big believer in getting grounded and doing that each morning.
I second every sentence you just said. I love it so much because, like you said, we resonate so well together. That's why I resonate with everything you just said. So I'm just going to leave it there for everyone, all our listeners. Take this information in. You're wonderful. You're perfect where you are. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. And Jeana, thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you.
We will.
Yes.
If I send their questions, we'll do one.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And everybody, keep surfing your energy wave. Bye.
Bye.